This happened 170 years ago, and I still think about it every day. I was 15, living in a small town in rural Alabama, just on the edge of my 16th birthday. It was a regular week, or so I thought. As I walked through our old farmhouse, the floor creaked beneath me. The air was filled with the scent of lavender from my mother's garden. But a strange heaviness settled in my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. A few days before my birthday, I climbed up to the dusty attic. I stumbled upon an old trunk under a pile of moth-eaten blankets. Curious, I pulled it open. Inside were my sister's diaries. I couldn't believe they had hidden them away for so long. Each page revealed bits of their lives but felt more like warnings. At first, I thought they were just silly teenage worries. But as I read, I started feeling unsettled. They wrote about things going missing and strange noises at night. They talked about their reflections looking back at them, but somehow different. My stomach turned as I read. The night before my birthday was the worst. I sat in my room, filled with thoughts of those diaries. I reached for a sketch stuck to the last pages. It was me, looking happy, but behind my smile, shadows lurked. My sisters had sketches too, showing the moment they vanished. I had a sinking feeling in my gut. Was this some kind of sick joke? Then it got really strange. I heard a whisper, almost like a voice. My skin prickled as I turned my head towards the window. The dark trees swayed in the wind, but I saw nothing. When I turned back to my room, I froze. The sketches were gone. All that was left was a note written in a hand that looked eerily like mine. It said, "Welcome to the family legacy." My breath quickened. Panic wrapped around me. It felt like the walls were closing in, trapping me. A cold gust swept through the room. I felt something brush past me, like a cold hand trailing along my spine. I spun around, but everything went black. I don't know what happened after that. I woke up the next morning, and it was my birthday. I didn't tell anyone what occurred. I couldn't. I could still feel it, the cold brush, the voices, and the chilling note. No one seemed to remember my sisters. It was like they vanished into thin air. Their essay story, whispered among the townsfolk, about every Ellison daughter disappearing on her 16th birthday. I have no proof, just a creeping dread. I thought about sharing this, but who would believe me? Now, I wonder. What will happen when I turn 16? Will I be next? The first rays of sunlight barely crept into my room, but I was wide awake. My birthday. I pushed myself out of bed and glanced at the mirror. I expected to see a shadow of fear in my reflection, but it looked normal. Still, the weight of the last night washed over me. I dressed quickly, ignoring the pang of anxiety that twisted my stomach. I focused on breakfast, forcing down a few bites of toast while my mother chatted about making my birthday special. She seemed so cheerful, so unaware of the dark things lurking in our home. It felt wrong to interrupt her happiness. After breakfast, I needed to think. I slipped away to the edge of our property, where the forest loomed. The trees moved like they were whispering secrets. I wanted answers. I couldn't focus on anything but the diaries and the chilling note. I had to go back to the attic. It felt like a compulsion. I climbed the narrow stairs, my heart racing as I approached the old trunk. Still, something held me at the door. The air felt electric. I peeked inside, expecting to find more of my sister's troubled thoughts, but the trunk was empty. Panic shot through me. Had someone taken the diaries? I searched the attic, desperate for any clue. As my fingers brushed over the dusty shelves, I found an old locket tucked away in a corner. I opened it, and inside was a tiny portrait of my sisters, smiling but with blank stares. My breath hitched, when I saw it. A shadow flitted across the room, just at the edge of my vision. I turned quickly, but nothing was there. Just silence and the weight of dread. I stepped back, my foot meeting an old wooden crate, sending it crashing to the floor. The sound echoed in my ears. Suddenly, from behind me, I heard a whisper. It was soft and low, almost like a song, but I couldn't make out the words. "Stay, just stay." I turned, breathing heavily, the locket still clutched in my hand. There was a chill in the air, and I felt an urgency to flee. But my legs wouldn't move. I was frozen, just like the portraits of my sisters. Then I felt it again, cold fingers wrapping around my wrist. I gasped, jerking my hand away, and stumbled back. The darkness in the corners of the attic seemed to pulse, shifting as if alive. "Come back," the whisper lured, seductive and haunting that I couldn't shake the feeling of being drawn in. A part of me desperately wanted to escape, to run to my mother, but another part it felt like it had already been claimed. With a sudden surge of strength, I turned and sprinted toward the attic door. But as I reached for the handle, it wouldn't budge. Panic clawed at my throat. Then there was a loud bang. The door swung open, revealing my mother's worried face, but behind her, the shadows danced in the corners of my vision. "Are you okay?" she asked, but something in her voice felt different, almost distant. Then I realized her reflection in the hallway mirror. Her eyes looked glazed over, and her smile felt too wide, unnatural. "Everything is going to be just fine," she said, stepping back, beckoning me to join her. "Come on home." Behind her, the shadows seemed to swirl, and I knew I had only moments to decide. Did I trust what waited in the darkness, or did I dare defy the family legacy? I took a breath, trembling, and stepped into the light. The moment I stepped into the light, I felt an odd sense of relief wash over me, but it was fleeting. My mother's smile faded, her eyes sharpening in that unnerving way. She looked at me, tilting her head slightly, as if trying to understand a puzzle. "Why don't you stay in the house today? We could have some fun together," she suggested, her voice smooth like silk yet tinged with something darker. That I forced a nod, the unease settling deeper in my stomach. "I just need a moment." "I'll be right down," I stammered. I didn't want to tell her what I felt, the way the shadows whispered, beckoning me back. I edged away from her, my heart racing. Once I was safe in my room, I slammed the door behind me and leaned against it. I needed a plan. The locket still dangled from my fingers, and I opened it again, staring at the portraits of my sisters. Something about their smiles felt like a warning rather than a comfort. I paced around the room, desperation creeping in. I needed to know more about the diaries. Digging deeper into my sisters' stories might reveal the truth of what waited for me, lurking in the shadows. But I had to be careful. If my mother sensed my curiosity, who knew what she'd do? Just as I began to unearth my thoughts, I heard it again, the soft, haunting whisper. "Come back." It drifted through the walls, wrapping around me like a cold shroud. I froze, listening intently. The sound seemed to come from the attic, a place I had just escaped. "No," I whispered firmly to myself. "I couldn't go back in there. Not now." But a voice inside me countered. "You need to." The pull was undeniable. I walked to my desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a flashlight. If I was going back, I needed to be prepared. After taking a deep breath, I crept cautiously out of my room, down the stairs, and toward the attic door. It creaked loudly as I pushed it open. The familiar scent of dust hit me, heavy and thick. I swept the flashlight over the space, the beam catching the movement of shadows. "Just the shadows," I whispered, trying to convince myself. But the chill that followed seemed to echo my doubts. As I stepped inside, I focused on the trunk once more. And that's when I noticed something beneath the floorboards just beside the trunk. A corner of something was sticking out, and I knelt down to pull it free. It was a faded piece of paper, crumpled and marked with dark stains. As I unfolded it, my pulse quickened. It was a page from a diary. Not one of my sisters, but from someone else entirely. The handwriting was frantic, almost desperate. "They come for you on your 16th birthday. Beware the shadows. They take you away." Before I could finish reading, a sudden crash echoed from the darkness behind me, rattling the walls. My heart skipped a beat as I whipped around, illuminating the corners of the attic with my flashlight. The shadows seemed to pulse again, moving closer. Lurking, then I realized the door had slammed shut behind me, trapping me inside. I was not alone. Someone or something was in the attic with me. I stood frozen, flashlight beam shaking as I swung it wildly, searching for the source of the noise. The shadows pressed in, thick and oppressive. I could almost feel their breath, cool and whispering against my skin. "Hello." I called out, my voice quivering. The attic felt alive, filled with the weight of unseen eyes. I bit my lip, fighting the urge to scream. There had to be a rational explanation for the crash, something other than the dark hovering around me. Suddenly, the flashlight flickered. "No, no, no," I breathed, shaking it against my palm. It flickered again, then died. Dread pooled in my stomach. In the silence that followed, I heard the creaking of wood, slow, deliberate, coming from the far corner of the attic that I squinted into the dark, straining to make out shapes. The trunk sat there, familiar yet menacing, and beside it, the shadows shifted. I knew I had to move. I needed to find that diary page again, but a new fear gripped me. What if whatever was in here didn't want me to leave? Gathering my courage, I edged closer to the trunk, my hands trembling. As I knelt down to retrieve the paper, my breath caught in my throat. There, just beside where the paper had been, I noticed a large crack in the floorboards. It was wider than before, gaping like an open mouth ready to swallow me whole. That I leaned closer, heart thudding as I caught a glimpse of something caught in the space. It was a ribbon, a blue satin one, frayed and aged. I recognized it instantly. It belonged to one of my sisters. My mind spun with questions. Why was it here? What had happened to her? Just then, movement caught my eye again. I straightened up, flashlight perishing in my grip as I saw a figure emerge from the shadows. A girl dressed in old-fashioned clothes, her eyes wide and hollow. She looked familiar, yet I couldn't place her. "Help me," she mouthed, though no sound escaped her lips. A surge of adrenaline coursed through me. I wanted to reach out, to hold her hand, to bring her back from wherever she was trapped. But just as I took a step forward, she vanished into the darkness, as if the shadows swallowed her whole. "No!" I gasped, my voice echoing in the attic. What was happening? The whispers from before grew louder, surrounding me. Come back, panic surged. I needed an exit. I stumbled back toward the door, slamming into it with my shoulder. It wouldn't budge, locked from the other side. The shadows swirled, and I felt them tugging at my feet, trying to pull me down into the darkness. "What do you want?" I screamed, desperation clawing at my throat. "Your birthday, it's time," a voice cooed, soft and sinister. Suddenly, the lights overhead flickered back to life, illuminating the attic. The girl appeared again, this time closer. Her lips curled into a sad smile, her eyes pleading, but behind her, a dark shape loomed, watching. I gasped, realizing I had to escape. Now. But as I bolted toward the door, I heard it again, the creak of the floorboards below. And then, unmistakably, a laughing whisper. That's when I knew I was out of time. I slammed my shoulder against the door again, panic fueling my movements. It refused to budge, as if it had turned to stone. I could feel the shadows closing in behind me, their whispers merging into a haunting chant. Come back, my heart raced. The words wrapped around me like chains, pulling me back toward the trunk and the girl who just vanished. Was that what this was about? Some twisted game tied to my family's past? I needed to think. I turned back toward the attic. The light flickered again, casting long, bizarre shadows across the walls. I peered into the dark again, searching for the girl, desperate to find answers. But only silence answered. Where are you? I whispered, my voice trembling. I took a step back, feeling the cold sweat trickle down my spine. That's when I noticed it a glimmer from the dark corner of the attic. Instinctively, I approached, stepping carefully over the crack in the floor. As I got closer, I realized it was another page, crumpled but unmistakably part of the diary I had been searching for. I snatched it from the dusty floor and opened it, hoping for something that might explain all of this. 16 years it read, scrawled in a hurried hand. Every Ellison daughter must acknowledge the pacts made with the shadows. Otherwise, the price will be paid. A chill ran through me. My hands shook as I turned the page, desperate for more clarity. There was more scrawling, but it was smeared, as if written in a rush. Find the ribbon. The message was clear, yet cryptic. My eyes flicked back to where I'd noticed the blue satin ribbon wedged in the floor. Is this about you? I murmured, feeling a connection to the girl from before. I knelt down, reaching into the crack to grab hold of the ribbon. As my fingers brushed against the cool fabric, a rush of memories exploded in my mind: lost laughter, playful hugs, and then, darkness. That I yanked the ribbon free, pulling my hand back. For a fleeting moment, the attic brightened, casting away the shadows. But then, the darkness swallowed the light again, thickening around me, and I shivered. Come back, the voice echoed again. This time, it was angry. Fear gripped my throat. Somehow, I knew the laughter wasn't just a ghostly echo but the promise of something terrible. I had to do something before it was too late. Then I spotted at the trunk. The surface was dusted with years of grime, but in that moment, I felt compelled to open it. I raced over to it, heart pounding in my ears. As I wrestled with the latch, dread spilled over. What if this was the wrong choice? What if my sisters were trapped inside? Finally, the trunk creaked open, revealing a mess of worn clothes, a small doll, and something glinting deep in the shadowy depths. I reached in, hands shaking as I pulled out a small mirror. Just a mirror, but as I turned it to the light, it reflected a scene that sent chills racing down my spine. Every girl I'd known, every sister, cousin, and friend standing in this very attic, mouths moving as if trying to scream, but frozen. Their eyes were wide, pleading. That's when I knew I had to get out. But before I could think, the floorboards beneath me cracked ominously, and the laughter returned, louder now, a chorus of voices shrieking in a sinister celebration. That I stumbled back, the mirror clattering to the ground, shattering against the wooden floor. And as the glass splintered, I caught one last glimpse of the girl, the one in old-fashioned clothes, her smile turning into a grimace as she faded away into the shadows. That I turned to flee, but the door was falling shut, propelled by an unseen force, and I knew this was only the beginning. I dashed back toward the door, my fingers fumbling with the handle in a frantic attempt to escape. The shadows felt alive, writhing and twisting around my legs, as if they were trying to pull me back. I knew I couldn't let that happen. Panic surged in my chest. Let me out. Please. I shouted, but the words echoed into nothingness. The door wouldn't budge. The shadows tightened their grip as my pleas dissolved into the air. Then I heard it again, a low whisper come back, now laced with a menacing tone. The attic felt smaller, the darkness closing in, heavy with the weight of secrets. My heart hammered. I had to find another way out. Looking around, I spotted a heavy wooden beam jutting out near the far wall. I could use it to break the window above the trunk. It might be my only chance. I raced across the attic, my fingers grazing the beam, but the closer I got, the more uneasy I felt. It was like stepping deeper into a well of dread. As I tightened my grip on the beam, the whispers morphed into a cacophony of voices. Some I recognized, others were alien and distant. You can't escape, they taunted. You belong to us. Fury ignited within me. They weren't going to claim me. Not now. Not ever. I slammed the beam against the window with all my might. The glass shattered into 1,000 pieces, sparkling like stars for a brief moment before falling into jagged shards across the floor. Just as I prepared to climb through, a sharp pain coursed through my side. I turned, shocked to see the remains of the mirror glinting dangerously on the floor. I had been so focused on fleeing that I hadn't considered how the room itself was turning against me. Each cut from the glass felt like a warning, but there was no time for hesitation. I clambered onto the ledge, heart racing as wind rushed in, carrying with it a promise of freedom. I felt the shadows behind me stir, as if they were enraged by my escape. Just as I was about to leap, a cold hand gripped my ankle that I screamed, looking down to see the girl from the mirror, the one who had smiled and then grimaced. Her wide eyes were filled with a desperate plea, fingers digging into my skin. "Help me!" She screamed, but her voice was drowned out by the chaos around us that I tried to shake her off, but my own body felt frozen. "You're trapped!" I gasped, but the shadows pushed in closer, and I could see my own reflection in her eyes, a mirror of fear. With my heart pounding, I reached down, grasping her hand. It was fleeting, like trying to catch smoke. "I can't help you if I stay," I cried, tears brimming. I felt something snap inside me. Maybe I could save her if I got free first. That I pulled with all my strength, and the grip loosened just enough. In that moment, I felt the weight of generations pushing against me, urging me to escape. I had to act quickly. I leapt through the window, the rush of air hitting my face like a slap. I landed outside, tumbling onto the soft ground below. I rolled to my feet and turned around, ready to face whatever was left behind. But then everything went dark. Suddenly, I stood in the same attic again, and the phrase, "every Ellison daughter," echoed ominously. A chill skated down my spine as realization hit: this wasn't over. I had broken free, but the price was yet to be paid. I blinked, the dim light of the attic cutting through the darkness like a knife. It felt all too familiar, my heart racing as if I'd just run a marathon. The shadows danced around me, forming shapes that were almost human. Panic bubbled in my stomach. I didn't understand how I had returned. That I ran to the window, hoping to escape again, but the glass shards were gone, replaced by an impenetrable wall of darkness. Whispers sifted through the air, fragments of conversations from before clawing at my mind. "You can't run," they chanted, pulling me into their torment. That I stumbled back, my breath hitching. Then, across the attic, I noticed a silhouette emerging from the shadows. It was the girl, the one from the mirror. She hovered just beyond my reach, her expression torn between hope and despair. "Please, don't leave," she begged, stepping closer. "You have to understand. It's not safe." "Not safe?" I echoed, fury rising within me. "You don't know what I've just faced. I'm not staying here." Behind her, the shadows stirred eagerly, and I felt a chill creep up my spine. "You don't have a choice. Every Ellison daughter, she has to know the truth," she insisted, her voice low. Before I could reply, a distant knock echoed through the attic. It was rhythmic, haunting, almost like a heartbeat. The girl's face twisted in fear. "They're coming," she whispered, her eyes darting toward the door. That I hesitated. "Who's coming?" "The ones who took me. The shadows aren't just a part of the space. They want you too." My heart sank. I had to get out, but there was nowhere to run. A sense of urgency pushed me forward. "What truth?" I pressed. "What do I need to know?" But before she could answer, the knocking intensified, resonating through the wooden beams. The sounds turned frantic, pounding like thunder, making it impossible to think. "Listen!" she cried, her voice barely audible. "You can't let them pull you back." Just then, the door burst open. A figure loomed in the doorway, cloaked in shadows. I couldn't see their face, but somehow, I felt their gaze boring into me. The atmosphere shifted, air grew dense and suffocating. The girl grasped my arm. "You have to make a choice." I wanted to scream, to break free. "What choice?" "Stay, and become part of this. Or fight." A surge of clarity struck as I recognized a pattern. They were not just memories, but echoes of every Ellison daughter. I felt their pain, their sorrow, woven into the very fabric of this place. I shook my head, fear igniting a sense of rebellion within me. I refused to be part of this curse. The shadowy figure advanced, and I felt the fear of those who came before me rise up. I could feel their uncertainty, but my will was stronger. Forcing my feet to move, I grabbed the girl's hand, ready to resist whatever was coming. "We'll fight," I declared, and in that moment, I felt a surge of power course through me. But just as the figure lunged forward, everything went black again. This time, I was not in the attic. I stood in a dense forest, darkness enveloping me like a cloak. Somewhere, beneath the trees, something stirred. My heart raced as I made out whispers in the distance, louder, closer. Someone was watching me. I took a step forward, heart pounding in an eerie rhythm, and felt the weight of a new revelation press down on my chest. That S when I saw it, a forgotten gravestone with my family's name etched into the stone, Ellison. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The urgency grew. There was more to discover, and I had to find out what it all meant. The forest felt alive around me, its shadows twisting and rustling with the unseen. The whispers grew louder, forming a chorus of voices, each one clawing at my sanity. "Find us. Remember us." The plea echoed through the trees, making my skin crawl. I needed to silence them to uncover whatever truth lay at the heart of this haunting. That I moved closer to the gravestone, my breath catching at the sight. It was overgrown with moss, yet the letters shone faintly, like they were trying to tell me something. "Ellison," I read, a shiver creeping down my spine. How was it possible that a family I didn't know had a claim on my name? Anxiety twisted in my gut as I ran my fingers over the inscription. There were initials carved below it, and suddenly, a wave of memories crashed over me. Visions of a girl with brown hair and sad eyes flickered in my mind. I watched as she laughed one moment, then wept the next. I understood this was one of the Ellison daughters. What had happened to her? Was it true that every daughter vanished at 16 like the girl said? "Help us," the whispers intensified, wrapping around me, almost suffocating. A bright light pulsed behind my eyelids. I opened them to find myself surrounded by blurry shapes, images holding fragments of a life long gone. I squinted into the brightness, struggling to make sense of it all. They were memories, but whose? Then, like ice water to the face, the chilling realization struck me. I realized I wasn't alone. They were in the forest, two figures cloaked in shadow, lingering at the edge of my vision. Panic surged. I turned, ready to run, and that S when I heard it. A voice, clear and resonant, tore through the chaos. "Come forth, Ellison." It commanded, deep and authoritative. My skin prickled. "Who are you?" I shouted, unsure if I wanted an answer. Instead of responding, the shadows shifted closer, their forms growing bolder. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, a pull toward the gravestone. The ground trembled beneath me, and mist began to swirl at my feet, wrapping around my legs like tendrils seeking to keep me anchored in place. "No. I want to stay here," I screamed, yanking myself away from the stone. My heart raced as I darted through the trees, branches clawing at my arms. The whispers taunted me, urging me to return. "Remember your name. Remember her face." I stumbled over roots and rocks, desperation fueling every frantic step. I couldn't fight shadows without knowing what they wanted or how they were connected to me. Rounding a corner, I skidded to a halt. A clearing appeared, illuminated by an unnatural glow emanating from the heart of the darkness. In the center stood a figure, the girl from the attic, her eyes wide with urgency. "Follow me," she called, extending her hand. "There is still time." Before I could react, the shadows surged toward me, their whispers swelling into a frenzy. Fear gripped me as I made my decision. I ran toward her, feeling the shadows claw at my heels. I didn't know where we were headed, but I had to find out what she meant. Just as I grasped her hand, I heard a voice I recognized amid the cacophony: "You can't escape your fate." Then darkness fell once again, but this time it felt different. It wrapped around us both, a veil separating me from the shadows. I held tight to the girl's hand. It was now or never. With a determination I didn't know I had, I pulled her through the darkness, ready to face the truth once and for all. The darkness faded, replaced by a dim luminescence that cracked open like the dawn after a long night. I blinked, trying to orient myself. We stood in a vast hall, the walls lined with faded portraits of solemn-faced women, their eyes following me with an unsettling intensity. I recognized their features, each one a reflection of the girl beside me. "Where are we?" I whispered, fear and confusion swirling in my chest. "This is the Ellison family home," she replied, her voice low but urgent. The last place we were seen before her words trailed off, and I saw a flicker of pain in her eyes. "You need to remember. It's the only way to help us." I looked around, taking in the ornate furniture draped in sheets, as if the family had left in haste. Dust danced in the air, illuminated by the shafts of light breaking through the heavy curtains. The atmosphere felt thick, charged with secrets long buried. "What happened to you?" I pressed, desperate for answers. The girl hesitated, biting her lip. "Every Ellison daughter vanished on her 16th birthday. It was a curse, a fate sealed long ago." She glanced at the portraits, dread washing over her. I tried to escape, but I was pulled back. "I need you to help me break this. You must find the truth before your time runs out." A chill gripped my spine. My own 16th birthday loomed just days away. But how? "I don't know anything about this family." "Your name, it gives you power." Her eyes sparkled with fervor. "You are connected to us. You can uncover the truth." I stepped further into the hall, drawn to a large tapestry hung at the far end. The fabric depicted scenes of festivities, but darker figures lurked in the background, shadowy forms that looked all too familiar. My pulse quickened. Were they the same shadows from the forest? "Look closer," the girl urged, stepping silently toward me. I reached out, fingers brushing the tapestry. As I did, a sharp jolt coursed through me, tossing me into a vision. I saw myself standing in a dimly lit room, surrounded by laughter and music, but then I felt the weight of eyes on me, the shadows shifting behind me, waiting. I gasped, stumbling back. What was that? I croaked, breathless. "It's their hold on us," she said, urgency creeping into her voice. "They want to trap you here too. We need to find the truth now." I nodded, realizing the weight of our task. I thought of the whispers, the grave, and the curse looming over me. But I also felt a flicker of bravery. I couldn't let them take me. I had to uncover the Ellison family's secrets. And that's when I heard a distant, low rumble that grew closer with each passing moment. "What is that?" I asked, panic rising again. "Worse than you can imagine," my guide whispered, her grip tightening on my hand. Suddenly, the ground beneath us began to tremble, sending vibrations through my legs. The portrait seemed to twist, the eyes narrowing in judgment. I looked back at the girl, and her expression mirrored my fear. "We need to hide," I shouted, but the rumbling intensified, a resonating sound that filled the hall. Then I saw them emerging from the shadows, figures more defined now, their faces twisted with fury. The truth was just within reach, but so was the darkness. My heart pounded as the shadows crept closer, merging into a dark cloud that filled the hall. I instinctively grabbed the girl's hand tighter. "What do we do?" I gasped, glancing around frantically for an escape. "They want to claim you. The truth lies in facing them." "Follow my lead," she urged, her voice steady amid the chaos. With resolve, I nodded, determined to fight against the family curse that threatened to ensnare me. We dashed towards a doorway that appeared just beyond the tapestry. The walls shook with every step, whispering secrets I couldn't fathom. As we crossed the threshold, the atmosphere changed. The air felt thick with tension. I turned back just as the dark figures began to slip through the doorway, their jagged forms twisting in frustration. "Keep moving," the girl urged, pulling me deeper into the room. We entered what seemed like an old study, filled with dusty bookshelves and heavy drapes that swayed like they were alive. Just ahead, a large mirror hung prominently on the wall, framed in tarnished gold. "That mirror!" I exclaimed, recognition igniting a sense of urgency. "I saw it before." "Yes," she said, urgency in her voice. "It can reveal the truth. But we must confront the shadows together." I stepped closer to the mirror, heart racing as I caught my reflection. But it wasn't just me staring back. The faces of my ancestors, every Ellison daughter, filled the glass, echoing the horrors they must have faced. Their eyes filled with sorrow and fear bore into mine. "What do you want?" I shouted at them, desperate for answers. "What do I need to do?" "Break the cycle. Release us," they whispered, their voices twining with the shadows that clawed at the edges of the room. My resolve stiffened. I had to end this, to free them and myself from this curse. "Focus. You have to remember," the girl urged, stepping closer to the mirror. "Recall your name. Connect to the legacy." Suddenly, memories struck me like lightning. I remembered laughter in a garden, the sound of sewing needles, a warm hand wrapped around mine. But mixed in were shadows' fingers reaching out from the darkness. I gasped, the sensation of fear returning. "Look!" the girl cried, pointing at the mirror. Shapes began to swirl, revealing scenes from the past. Each shadow showed a story: a night of laughter abruptly ending in shrieks, the bright celebration turning dark, a daughter pulled into the abyss. "They are bound by a deal, a pact made generations ago. You can untangle it," the girl explained urgently. That I closed my eyes, summoning every ounce of strength within me. "No more," I shouted, my voice resonating through the chamber. "You will not take another Ellison." The room quaked, and the shadows writhed, momentarily receding. But they rushed back with unforgiving velocity. In that instant, I knew what I had to do. "I choose to break the pact," I cried, stepping toward the mirror, my reflection unwavering. The shadows howled, their chilling cries echoing in the room. But I pushed through the dread, reaching out to the surface of the mirror. As my hand made contact, vibrant light exploded outward, illuminating the chamber and dissolving the dark entities. The faces of my ancestors transformed from fear to relief, their forms coalescing into brilliant streams of light that danced around me. The shadows twisted and writhed but grew fainter as they absorbed the brightness. Just as I began to feel hope blooming within me, a sudden figure thrusted toward me. It was the girl, her expression filled with urgency and fear. "You must leave before they pull you back." I hesitated, torn between staying to help or escaping the inevitable fate. But the light pulsing from the mirror felt inviting and freeing. "Will you be safe?" I asked desperately, glancing around the room. "I will find a way," she said fiercely. "But you must go." As she spoke, the shadows lunged again. "No!" I cried, torn by fear and anger. Yet the light engulfed me, bright and warm, urging me onward. With a final glance, I locked eyes with the girl, understanding that this was our moment. "Don't stop fighting," I shouted, and as the shadows reached for me, I stepped right through the mirror's brilliance. Everything faded in a vortex of light, pulling me away. I gasped as I landed on the soft grass outside the house, the morning sun bathing my skin in warmth. The shadows were gone. I looked back at the old farmhouse, the attic now just a building swallowed by the brightness of the day, but even as I felt a sense of relief, questions churned in my mind. Had my family really been freed? Would the darkness return? I felt the weight of an unfinished story. The echoes of my sisters still hung in the air, waiting for acknowledgement, waiting for me to remember that I moved away from that place, determined to find answers. I didn't share my tale with anyone, fearing it would draw them into the shadows. Instead, I settled into a new life, but sometimes, I swore I could hear faint whispers calling to me. I still think about it all, the truth still lurking just beyond reach, like a story half told waiting for its rightful ending.